All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started. I want to thank you all so much for introducing yourself in the chat. Go ahead and turn this music down. All right, and I am going to officially go ahead and start us off. So, my name is Raquel McGee. I am the founder and co-chair of BWOP Chicago. And I want to go ahead and kick us off. Welcome to the BWOP International Women's Day 2021 rally. We are so appreciative that you have chosen to spend the evening of your International Women's Day with us. We're honored to be in the presence of other Black women and girls. There's nothing like it. So I'm going to give a little bit of an intro and then we'll get started because we got a lot to do this evening. So BWOP Chicago is a political advocacy organization with Black women at the helm. We started up at the start of the pandemic. And we have done a lot of advocacy work thus far around COVID-19 response, particularly the response to the Black community. We've done some political education workshops, which we call our SIP and studies. We have engaged in the electoral process by making some really important campaign endorsements. And currently, we are in our Small Blessings campaign, and we'll talk more about that later. I want to just set the tone for the evening thus far. I'm going to share the link to this PowerPoint in the chat so you can follow along if you'd like. This rally is intended to specifically center Black women and girls, to speak to both our lived experiences and also data-driven analysis. So this runs counter to many spaces that disregard the specificity of Black women's experiences and issues. There is an oft-quoted book title, "All the Women Are White, All the Blacks Are Men, but Some of Us Are Brave." We are going to be brave in this space and center specifically Black women and girls. So be prepared for that to be a common thread throughout that evening and respect the space. A couple of trigger warnings. Some of our content will focus on sexual and physical violence, medical apartheid, and institutionalized misogynoir. So without further ado, I am so pleased to invite up our first poet. I'm going to have the pleasure of introducing her, and I'm so happy. Octavia Acard is a 3-year spoken word poet who goes to my school where I teach at, OPRFHS High School, whoop whoop, Huskies, who prides herself on being an advocate for Black women and girls. For the majority of her life, she grew up in the South and then moved to the Midwest when she was 13. Here she learned what it meant to be a poet and to be an activist. Without further ado, give a virtual round of applause. Actually, you snap in poetry. You don't clap, you snap. To Octavia Acard. Welcome, Octavia. Go ahead and, give us your message for the evening.
Hi, I'm Octavia. I'm just gonna go over the spoken word rules quickly. If you like a line, you can do a virtual snap in the chat. And if you find a line striking, you can also put it in the chat. So the title of my piece is called Lessons Learned. Lessons I've learned through the years. I never realized the bitterness of the word strong until it surrounded me on all sides. I hadn't realized that I'd be forced to grow up faster, that Black girls don't get to extend their stems out to the sun and bloom. I eventually entered the classroom of adolescence, and slowly these lessons came to me. I'm 13 when Black boys instruct me on the currency of ambiguousness, the ugliness of my own features. And I note in the margins of my notebook with shaking hands that the self-hatred of the Black man is like a noose to my neck, lashes to my back. It hurts like my kids being sold to a plantation miles away. Through tedious studying, I grasped that the hatred of the Black female is the Black male's bread and water, and that my role is to accept being fed on. My father instructs me how to fight for my oppressors, how to march and how to speak for them, all the while swallowing my own anger like antidepressants. I passed this class of self-sacrifice with flying colors, my soul half gone and my back sturdier, for I have now learned how to carry burdens. A skill only the strong Black woman can take on. I'm 14 when white girls teach me that I'm not white enough to be a woman, that my existence overshadows their oppression and my identities crash against one another too loudly. And so I'm 14 when I learn the feeling of being silenced. I note next to bullet points that feminism has keep out signs for Black girls, that the "we can do it" does not apply to me because Black women have always done everything for everyone but themselves. I learned that being strong is not a word of empowerment for the Black woman, but a contract in which she owes her life to. I try to fly through the lessons that white girls teach me, and then I flee. I do not graduate this class on girlhood, and my notebook is stained with tears. This year, I learned the name Breonna Taylor and tattoo it to my tongue so I can never forget it. She haunts me in my dreams, takes up spaces in the back of my brain, and stares back at me when I look in the mirror. I wonder how you're supposed to cope when the world hates you this much. I wonder what it's like to not be scared when you see a white man with a badge. I wonder how you cope with that white man shooting your daughter. And I wonder how you sleep at night knowing that he got away with it. I ask myself if I will give birth to a child whose last memories will be the sound of a gunshot. Years of classes have not answered these questions. For now, I close the chapter of Black girlhood. I hope I can survive to womanhood.
Thank you so much, Octavia. I want to again give a big shout out to Octavia. I really appreciate you sharing your truth with us this evening, and please show her some love in the chat. I definitely have chills right now because to be in a space multi-generationally sharing in this experience that we call Black womanhood, give some love to our young sister, y'all. Thank you, Octavia. Next, we are going to have a brief presentation on the BWOP policy agenda. I am going to ask my co-chair, Lynette Sims, to do this presentation, and I will also be displaying the BWOP policy agenda. I'm also going to share with you all, if you'd like to follow along as we go through this, a link to the policy agenda in the chat. We are an organization, we do not pretend to be apolitical. We are political because the personal is political. So what we are going to be sharing with you now are a set of policy recommendations that we have for improving the lives and livelihoods of Black women and girls in the state of Illinois, but as you will see, really throughout the entire country. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to BWOP co-chair Lynette Sims.
Hi, thank you so much, Raquel. Thank you. BWOP, as Raquel stated, is a political advocacy group working on behalf of Black communities throughout the state of Illinois with Black women at the helm of leadership. We are not opposed to having Black men at our meetings, but they cannot hold any leadership positions. To remain plugged into the current events and attend our meetings about how to push these policies ideas forward, please sign up for our mailing list by clicking on the link. Please subscribe to our mailing list. If you have any questions or would like to partner on any upcoming ideas, please contact us at BWOP Chicago Chair at gmail.com. So we are interested in pushing policy at the city level, at the state level, and at the federal level. So for at the city level, who exactly do we need to contact? We would like to make contact with the aldermen, village trustees, councilmen, county commissioners, and mayors. At the state level, we would like to get in contact with state reps, state senators, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, and Governor J.B. Pritzker. And at the federal level, we would like to get in contact with congressional representatives, congressional senators, Vice President Kamala Harris, and President Joe Biden. Some of the policy issues that we like to push for is one, Black maternal health, allocating funding to create state-of-the-art birthing centers in majority Black areas, as Black women in Chicago have higher maternal morbidity rates than all other groups of women. And this includes municipalities and counties. Next, we would like to focus on missing and murdered Black women and girls. Create citywide agencies to allocate resources to stop the frightening pattern of missing and murdered Black women and girls at the municipal and county level. We would like to fight for a living wage. The living wage in Illinois for a two-partner, two-child household is actually calculated to $32. Wow, $32. We call on municipalities and counties to enact living wage ordinances that reflect this reality, enacting $25 an hour living wage ordinances and eliminating any loopholes for tip wage workers, industries in which Black women are overrepresented. Next, we would like to advocate for rent and mortgage relief. We call for municipalities and counties to enact rent and mortgage relief policies to ensure that Black women and their families remain housed during this pandemic. Also, Black women suffer from the eviction crisis more than any other ethnic group. So the rent and mortgage relief is especially dear to us. Domestic violence resources. 55% of Illinois domestic violence survivors are Black women, and this has been exacerbated during the pandemic. We call on local municipalities and county level governments to ensure that resources and shelter are available to survivors and enforcement of victims' rights laws and orders of protection. So those are all the policies that we are fighting for at the city and county level. We're fighting for a similar policy at the state level, but with an emphasis on the state level and advocating for Black doulas and midwife pipelines. Create a state-funded scholarship program to create a pool of Black doulas and midwives, as Black women in the state of Illinois are more likely than any other group to die or suffer complications during childbirth. And again, we are also advocating for missing and murdered Black women and girls at the state level, a living wage, rent control at the state level. In addition, at the state level, we are advocating for statewide universal child care. We call on the Illinois legislators to follow the lead of Massachusetts to enact universal child care policies. Currently, Illinois is one of the most expensive states for child care, with the average family paying $13,000 per year. In the last policy push at the state level is Nordic model for Illinois. Illinois ranks 11 in the nation for human trafficking abuses, with 53% of victims identified as Black and 87% of victims being women and girls. We call for increased legislative measures to protect victims and end this vicious, degrading cycle. So some policy level, some federal level policies that we would like to advocate for is to end Black femicide, declare a national state of emergency over widespread violence against Black women and girls who are victims of murder every 8 hours, similar to the state of emergency declared in Puerto Rico. We are also advocating for a federal jobs guarantee, enact a federal jobs guarantee to mitigate the enormous job loss that has been suffered by Black women during the pandemic, which is demonstrated by an 8.9 unemployment rate. And we are also advocating for universal child care at the federal level. And also Black maternal health omnibus, reparations, student loan cancellation, and Medicaid for all.
All right. Thank you so much, Lynette, for sharing our policy agenda. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link to our policy agenda again in the chat so that you're able to access it. We'll now go to Joy Bunton, who is going to introduce our next speaker.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joy Bunton, Director of Information, and I'm glad to see everyone here. It is my great pleasure to introduce for everyone Jackie Grimshaw. She has a very nice, impressive resume. I'm a little biased because I came across Ms. Grimshaw when I found out that she worked under Mayor Hill of Washington, who was like my favorite mayor. But she has done so many other things outside of that. But under Harold Washington, she was a political advisor and director of the Mayor's Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. She's also served on numerous boards, including the CTA, National Academy of Sciences, Transportation Research Boards, Environmental Justice, and Public Involvement Committees. And she's completed terms on the Women's Issues in Transportation Committee. She's also involved with the Chicago Women Take Action, and she's currently Vice President Government Affairs at CNT, which stands for, shoot, I just had it here. I'm sorry, I just lost my place where I was reading. But she's currently Vice President Government Affairs with CNT, my apologies. And here we go, Jackie Grimshaw.
Hey.
I always forget to unmute myself. All right, you can see and hear me. But thank you, Joy. Not to worry, CNT stands for Center for Neighborhood Technology. We're a nonprofit right here in the city of Chicago. So first of all, let me just say happy International Women's Day to everyone. And thank you to Black Women Organizing for Power for inviting me tonight. It is my pleasure to be one of your speakers at this virtual rally and celebration of Black women and girls in the state of Illinois. And I have to commend you that during the COVID-19 dominated year of 2020, you recognize the need for organizing for political power. And building an organization takes hard and sustained work, and I wish you the best and let me know how I can help. My task this evening, though, is to speak to the specific concerns about how the built environment via transportation policy can be made optimal for Black women and girls in the Chicagoland area. How can public policy, particularly in transportation, relate to Black women and girls? So, good policy should recognize the link among transportation, land use, and the economy. So, the question that was posed to me is really the right one, and I'll try and address all three this evening. Let me say that policy issues of whatever sort is not just about what affects Black women and girls, but how they affect Black families. After all, Black women are the backbone of the family, and it is Black mothers who need to prepare their daughters to lead in the world external to the household. So it is correct that you seek to advance the political interests of all Blacks in Chicagoland and throughout the state. I applaud you for seeking to center Black women's voices in your organizing and advocacy efforts. So COVID-19 made the hidden all too visible in a number of sectors. Racial inequality was exposed, and racial equity has become an increasingly important topic in transportation as in other aspects of our lives. So transit is an essential solution to achieving racial equity in communities. So what do I mean by that? As the economy shut down, not everyone had the ability to work from home. There were the essential workers that made it possible for the majority of the workforce to work from home. Someone had to man the grocery stores, the drugstores, the hospitals, the nursing home, etc. And most of those workers do not have cars, or if they do not have an affordable place to park them during their shifts. So another set of essential workers had to provide the transportation to get workers back and forth from home to work. Chicago was fortunate because our transit agency did not reduce service like so many agencies across the country. In fact, CTA staff reallocated more service where the loads were the heaviest to allow for more social distancing on those heavily traveled routes. So notwithstanding the continued transit service during the pandemic, I want to point out that overall, our transportation systems currently provide unequal service with disparities by income and race. So people of color spend a higher share of their income on transportation, consequently providing more equity in transportation coverage and reducing transportation costs creates an opportunity for wealth building. There are also inequities in Black communities' abilities to influence the design of transportation projects within their communities. Even though transportation projects can serve as a key community asset, many communities of color and low-income communities struggle to assert their need for community participation in decision-making and equitable distribution and placement of new services and infrastructure. Public engagement, where you get to speak your mind and let folks know what you think, has relied on methods that overrepresent high-income riders and stakeholders, like online surveys and public meetings that demand hours of people's time, and usually at an inconvenient time for most people with families. Unfortunately, the Black community often bears the brunt of imposed transportation projects because they have not had the opportunity to make their voices heard. On the other hand, look at the employment corridors along I-90 and I-88, which represent more than 250,000 jobs that remain largely unconnected to rail transit. and hundreds of thousands of jobs suitable for low income and unemployed workers. Now, I often hear, particularly young Black women, express their aspiration that they can't wait till they have enough money to buy a car. That's understandable because America's car-based transportation system erects barriers to mobility for those who cannot afford a car. And that fact reinforces long-term social inequities. These transportation barriers include the inability of Black, brown, and low-income people to get to jobs, food, medical care, attend to a sick relative, or getting whatever is needed. Lack of frequent, reliable, and timely transit service has a severe impact on transit-dependent riders, approximately 60% of whom are people of color. Transit investment can remove these barriers and prioritize the needs of Black, brown, and low-income people who stand to gain the most from better service and lower transportation costs. Households that live within walking distance of a transit system own fewer cars, drive less, and can apply the savings for housing and other needs. Transportation can cost moderate income households 20% less when they are located around the existing CTA system than in Cook County as a whole. Investing in a home is a wealth building option versus a car that reduces in value the minute it's driven off the car lot. Now, historically, transportation decisions have been frequently made without a role for the communities most impacted by those decisions. As a result, infrastructure such as highways have often led to the destruction and separation of neighborhoods and communities, especially lower income communities and communities of color that have limited power. Information related to transportation planning is often presented in ways that's difficult to understand, and transportation planners have failed to meaningfully incorporate input from impacted residents. What we also know from looking at development patterns around the country is where there has been dense urban development with good access to transit, amenities, and jobs, household expenditures is low, and in areas where development has happened in a more haphazard way with low density and less access to transit jobs and amenities, transportation costs go up. Housing costs very similarly have been driven by other historical issues such as racial segregation, poverty, and disinvestment. So the major difference in metropolitan areas is driven by overall development patterns. So by taking in consideration both housing and transportation costs, it levels the playing field for affordable housing in traditionally exclusive urban neighborhoods and reveals the inequity of investing in affordable housing in inefficient, what it's called affordable housing, in inefficient remote communities, meaning, those communities are low density, auto dependent, suburban, and exurban developments. The development patterns that separate workers and employers could threaten our economic recovery, with strapped households, businesses, and local governments unwittingly footing the bill in higher transportation costs and a lower quality of life. We are already seeing spikes in gasoline prices, so the car dependent will have less money to spend on other essentials. There is a need for a modal shift away from the car to maintain economic growth. Our country and region needs a new strategy for economic recovery and prosperity. Our residents need a chance to access jobs and build wealth more easily and affordable. Our region needs a greater mixture of transportation options. Our taxpayers need a more efficient allocation of resources, and we need more compact development along the region's transit corridors in existing communities. And finally, transit agency boards and leadership should reflect the demographics and share the experiences of riders. Thank you much, and I don't know if we have questions, but I'll be happy to take them.
All right. Thank you so much, Mrs. Grimshaw. We really appreciate you coming. Participants, feel free to contact Mrs. Grimshaw through the chat, and we'd also be happy to put specific organizations and advocates in touch. We're going to move right along, and I will have Rose Baptiste another BWOP member to introduce our next speaker.
Hi, good evening. So it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Keena Collins. A little bit about her biography. Keena Collins is a gun violence prevention and healthcare advocate who is from the Austin neighborhood of the West Side of Chicago. She has played an active role in the national movement for Black Lives and has helped organize, direct electoral actions in Chicago after the Laquan McDonald video was released in 2015. Keena served on the National Leadership Council as the Louisiana State Lead with Generation Progress and Center for American Progress, which brought young adults together from across the country to address the root causes of gun violence and criminal justice reform. Keena also helped build a statewide coalition and co-authored landmark civil rights legislation in the Illinois General Assembly that established the Illinois Council of Women and Girls Act in 2018. She now serves as the executive director of GPEC ICHV, the largest statewide gun violence prevention nonprofit in Illinois. So please give a warm welcome to Ms. Keena Collins.
Hey, everybody. Can y'all hear me okay? Y'all can hear me fine? Okay. First off, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm just so honored to be on an esteemed panel like this. So many people on the panel, Dr. Fagan and Jackie Grimshaw, people who I really look up to and have just worked for a really long time. And so it's great to know that we stand on the shoulders of giants and they're continuing to do the work every single day. Today is my birthday. I was born on International Women's Day. So when people ask me about, how were you 27 writing the Illinois Council on Women and Girls Act, I just tell them I was right on brand. It was right on brand. So I have to make a quick statement because I have to jet to another event that's happening in the Oak Park area that will be virtual. But I did want to speak specifically about my experience of just coming off of my congressional run in the Illinois 7th District and what that was like, and some of the things that I think that we as Black women need to be talking about in the Democratic Party. If you are a Democrat, but even if you are not a Democrat, just the American political system, and the basically the encouragement of it is a tough, long road if you decide to public office. It is doable and it's possible, and we need to continue to create the blueprint. When I stepped into the race, we ended up finding out that I was the youngest Black woman to ever file an FEC in Illinois state history. And so to run for Congress, and that kind of shocked me because we know of so many young Black women and all across the state of Illinois who do amazing organizing work, specifically around electoral organizing. But what it presented me and my team with was a unique set of advantages and obstacles that I think that we should talk about. And one of those things in particular is the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee's blacklist rule that they put out, which to me is extremely detrimental to the party's strongest voting bloc in the country, which is Black women. After the historic 2018 midterm elections wrapped up and campaign preparations for 2020 were getting underway, Democratic primary candidates challenging incumbents in the Democratic Party from all across the country were slapped with the new official rule by the DCCC. And the rule holds that any vendors, political consultants, fundraisers, and media firms who offers help to elect an insurgent candidate will be blacklisted from working with the Democratic Party. And at best, to me, this ruling is counterproductive. At worst, it's discriminatory. And either way, I believe that it hurts the direction of the party and should be rescinded immediately. In particularly when we talk about Black women. Why? Because we know the voting prowess of Black women. And so I always say, I want people to put some respect on our vote as Black women, because we really make things happen in this country electorally. In 2016, for example, while the country watched the former occupant of the White House, Donald Trump, lace his speeches with racist messaging and sexist joke, a staggering 94% of Black women voted for Hillary Clinton. After Clinton lost the election, a special election was held in the state of Alabama, and 98% of Black women went back to the ballot box and elected Democrat Doug Jones as the U.S. Senator in Alabama. Doug Jones' victory is particularly important to note because it showed Black women have the ability to get out the vote in deep red Republican states. And we saw that happen again in Georgia this year with Stacey Abrams and BWOP and all those amazing organizations on the ground. Not only did Black women outvote every other demographic group in the special election that happened in Alabama, they brought voters to the poll and created initiatives like Woke Vote. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 55% of eligible Black women voters cast a ballot in the general election in 2018, a figure that was anywhere between 2 to 5% higher than the national voter turnout. And really, when we come up against, how a lot of these Black women have issues with running for office, is people talk about this myth of electability. Now, I know it's hard to us and hard to explain to our grandchildren one day that people really didn't think that Stacey Abrams was electable at one point. And that was actually headlines and news that people perpetuated, and now we know that not to be true. We could also talk about the flurry of the compounding of sexism and racism that Black women face when they run, which we saw with now Vice President Kamala Harris when she was running as a presidential candidate. One of the first political opposition hits to put out about Kamala Harris was who she dated in her 20s, right? And so those are things, obstacles that kind of come up. And we know that having professional staff on your campaign to help you navigate through those waters helps you run a really smooth campaign. But with this BWOP rule, it would be very difficult for you to find very well seasoned and veteran vendors to help you with that. My question that I had as a candidate, but also just as a voter, is an avid voter, is if Black men are the backbone of the American political system, imagine how much more we can do, not just our voting power, but our governing power that is guiding decisions in this country. As former Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm stated, who was the first Black woman elected to Congress, our country needs women's idealism and determination, perhaps more in politics than anywhere else. When Black women show up to the polls, we vote with a moral fiber and collective consciousness intended to protect our entire country and our community. To me, the BWOP rule limits the ability of underrepresented groups in this country to fully and equitably participate in the democratic process. When running for office, fundraising and getting covered by the media are two of the largest hurdles Black women face. This rule is designed to kneecap insurgent candidates, making an already difficult journey impossible for us as Black women. The DNC and the BWOP cannot chastise the GOP for voter suppression and then restrict or impede the ability for everyday people to make it on the ballot. So we need to make a collective and conscious effort and decision to say that we want free and fair elections, which I think we have the ability to run here in the United States of America, and that people should have the capability to run for those seats. I believe voters are smart enough decide who should represent them without these entities making the decisions for us. In my time, and I'll wrap and put a pin on some of this, I wrote an op-ed with Teen Vogue talking about some of this information during my campaign, and we basically forced the hand of the DCCC to respond about the disparity of women candidates that typically don't get support when they run for office. And their response after 54 Black women ran for office last time, they said, well, we supported 4 of them out of 54. And so we have to be diligent. We have to be diligent in Billy. Can y'all hear me? Hear me okay?
We can hear you better now. Yeah.
We just have to be diligent in the ability to ensure that we are being represented. Ultimately, I believe that the civil rights movement of our generation was led by Black women. Our civil rights fight is for transformational policies like Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, and equal opportunity and protection for everyone. It is intersectional, and it includes the LGBTQIA plus community, immigrants and refugees, Indigenous folks, people with a wide array of abilities, and youth who know the truth about the world that we're leaving them. And, you know, while I know we might catch the age-old argument of she's leveraging identity politics when we talk about these things, I would like to submit a point of consideration. White, cisgendered, heterosexual, Christian, and male are all identities. And those identities have dominated our government for centuries. It's time for us to shatter that binary and shift the paradigm of what leadership looks like in this country. So, you know, this is such a unique, we'll drop a link. I'm frozen. Am I frozen, y'all?
We can hear you, but you are frozen.
Come in. I think that it's important in this moment and in this time, you know, we really push the ability, for young women, young Black women to run for these seats. The leaders, the young activists that we see cropping up in our communities, and that we help guide them in this process of doing that, right? So that's just a little bit about some of the obstacles I saw during my time in the Democratic Party, is that if Black women are the moral fiber of this country, and we collectively always make a really good conscious decision in the ballot box, it's not enough for us to be a martyr for the Democratic Party. We also need to be in leadership. And so I met a lot of very strong women across my district who share stories. I'm pretty sure as Ms. Jackie Grimshaw could share of their time when organizing with Harold Washington, and the excitement that we could bring back to electrifying the electorate around getting young people engaged now more than ever. Because if we think that it's over, it's not. It's gonna get a lot tougher before it gets easier. And so I would like to take this opportunity to stand in the gap, say we need to encourage our girls and our women in our community to make sure that their voices are being used at every single table that decisions are being made, essentially. And so once again, I just thank y'all for giving me the opportunity to talk. I know it might have been a little scattered, but I will send some links to the op-ed so that Raquel and everyone could pass it around and y'all could read some of my thoughts on it. And I'm super excited, once again, and honored to be on this panel with some amazing women who are doing amazing work, not just here in Illinois, but across the country and across the city of Chicago. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kina. We're really appreciative of your time, and thank you so much for that message. Attendees, if you could just take this quick poll about your interest in for office at any level. So far,
Raquel,
go ahead.
it's a quick question before I hop off. The dangers of running for office, absolutely. You know, it was almost egregious to some people. And I'm pretty sure I see some elected officials on this call that they are living it. They're actually elected officials. It is egregious to some people that Black women have the audacity to speak up about these issues and actually want to lead on these issues in a bold way. And so anything will have risk. But to me, what's more risky is us sitting on the sidelines. And that's just, you know, when people ask the question of why Black women vote how we do, I always just say we just got plain old common sense. You know, if you're up there, you know, not talking about helping the country, then you're not going to get our vote. And so I want us to translate that electoral power into some of us running for those seats. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kina. Your message is much appreciated. We're going to pause for a stretch break, and Rose is going to share with us some of the parameters of that stretch break at this time.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I was having some technical difficulties. So the stretch break is going to be about 3 minutes, and the question, you can type your answers in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and just share your answers. But the question is, what is the most beautiful piece of advice that you've received from a fellow Black woman? And so feel free to share your thoughts. We'd love to hear it. Well, I'll start off and share one of the most beautiful pieces of advice that I've received. It was kind of advice, but also just an example, which was my grandmother just teaching me that I have the ability to determine my own path in the world, no matter how difficult or scary it might be. So that's guided me throughout my whole life. I see Octavia, you have your hand raised. I think you can unmute yourself and just speak.
This is not exactly like a piece of advice, but it's a quote that I kind of live by Audre Lorde, who's a queer Black feminist. And she said, to write for those women who do not speak, for those who do not have a voice because they are so terrified because we are taught to respect fear more than ourselves. We've been taught that silence would save us, but it won't. And that had helped me a lot, knowing that I need to raise my voice so people can hear it. And so
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I love, love, love that quote. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who would like to share? Let me look through the room. Oh, someone
Go ahead,
wrote,
Rosalind. Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
Rosalind.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Rosalind. One of the things I learned professionally as a nurse, still dominated predominantly by white nurses, and healthcare in particular is predominantly white. One of the things I learned from a Black nurse mentor that I've carried in my personal life as well is never second guess and shrink in the presence of others when you know that you're on top of your game and what you know is true. You know, because a lot of times Black women, Black people in particular, when they're in the presence of mixed company, they tend to dull their own shine. So the best advice I would give is to always shine, no matter who's in the room.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for that. And you're so right. With that, I think our little stretch break is over. I hope everyone enjoyed it. And I'm going to pass it back to Raquel.
Okay, thank you all so much for participating in our stretch break. We are going to go right along, and Rose is going to introduce our next featured speaker. Oh, Rose, you got to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I always forget that sometimes. Okay, so our next speaker is Miss Aurora Monroe from Black Femicide. So Aurora is the owner of the Blackful Anti-Racism Consulting LLC, the founder of Stop Killing Black Women Initiative, and the co-founder of the Black Fem Fund, a 501c3 nonprofit that supports and empowers Black women and children. She is also a Black woman and girl activist with Black Femicide USA, where they track and bring awareness to the many murders, violence, and brutality Black women and girls are facing today in the Black community. So please give a warm welcome to Ms. Monroe.
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen so you guys can see the presentation. I'm gonna try to go through it slowly so that you can get all the information, but if you have questions, you can always reach out to me. So I'm Aurora, and I want to stop and also give a shout out to two of my co-fighters. Rosa Page, she is the one that was just talking about being a nurse. She is the founder of Black Femicide USA, and without her perseverance and her drive to gather this data, to traumatize herself every day, hearing these stories, getting these stories, and documenting what Black women and girls are facing, we wouldn't have this information today. So I just want to thank her so much for everything that she's done and even taught me. And then our other co-fighter is Carletta Smith. She is the founder of Daily Black Facts, and she has over 80K followers, and she literally posts Black history facts from all over the diaspora, even stuff that we have forgotten or don't even know. So I appreciate her so much for teaching me things, and I'm not really big on history like she is. I like the data, but she likes to go into the stories, and I've learned so much just from being her friend and also just watching her as she provides information. So I just want to thank them, because without them, I would not be able to do this at all. So thank you so much, ladies. So today I want to talk about Black femicide, and Black femicide is the murders of Black women and girls. We deal specifically with what happens in the US. So here's the team. A lot of this data, it's going to be overwhelming. I want to say upfront trigger warning, because it's very triggering, and I do apologize for that, but it's so important for us to say it out loud, to say this is happening, because it's not being said. So we wanted to bring to you the data from the last 3 years and how it has increased, the violence has increased, especially during 2020, towards Black women and girls in our own communities. And as you guys can see from this slide, right now in the 21st century in the United States of America, not a third world country, but in the United States, which is supposed to be a mega, first world country with all these great things happening, Black women and girls are being killed less than every 8 hours. Our data show that about 3.3 Black women and girls are killed every day. And those numbers have risen in some areas more than we saw in 2019 to today. Since 2019, over 2,280 Black women and girls and counting have been killed in the US alone. It was 918 in 2019, 1,166 in 2020, and so far this year, over 218. And we're only in day 67 of the year. So that's at 7.3 hours and some change that a Black woman or a girl is being slaughtered in our community. Now, here are some of the girls, and you'll see babies on here because this is not an age thing. We have babies as young as 1 to 2 months old, all the way up to elderly women and girls being murdered in our community. So the rate of death in 2019 was every 9.5 hours. In 2020, it went up. It decreased to every 7.5 hours, and in 2020, we're at 7.3 hours so far. So I always ask myself and anyone I'm talking to, where do Black women catch a break? Where do Black girls catch a break? Because we're fighting racism, we're fighting white supremacy, sexism, colorism, and then we're fighting our dads, our cousins, our peers. We're fighting everybody. And we give so much, as you heard from the other ladies, there's so much that Black women give, and no one is filling us back up. No one is caring about the disparities that we're facing or even the violence that we are facing. I mean, entire generations of Black women and girls are being erased, literally for no reason at all. And we have organizations that claim to be for the advancement or the well-being of Black people, but don't even mention what's happening to Black women in our community. So I ask myself and I ask others, do Black women not count as a member of the Black community? Because if we're here, if we're at the forefront marching for everybody, making sure everybody has what they need, why are we dying like this? And why is it not being talked about on the national level? So I ask myself also, is this intentional? Now I want you guys to look at some of this data here. This is data that I got that dates back, there's data all the way back from the 90s and the 80s, but this is a recent data that I found. When it comes to violence, this is some of the things that Black women and girls as young as 3 months old are facing every day in our community, constantly. This is not us going out of our community, but this is right at home, right in our communities, right at the grocery store down the street. This is what we are facing, as you can see. And I want to point out this, I think this is very important because we get this a lot on our page and people getting upset. Black men, studies show Black men, especially those in certain tax brackets, are more likely to marry non-Black women, which is fine. Anybody should be with whoever they want to be with. What is not okay is that they're still coming back into the Black community to kill Black women and girls. That's the problem. Marry who you want to marry, but Black women and girls are their number one victims for any violent crime that they commit, more often than not. That is not okay. That is not okay at all. Black women are more likely to be adverse to dating out. They don't want to do that, and they want to stick around and wait for a good Black man. Many times, more often than not, with the data we found, even when she waits for that good Black man by society standards, she's being murdered. Even years later, we just had a woman that was married for 30 years, and people, even the family, saying, we didn't know any better. Yes, he kind of was, controlling a little bit, but, we didn't know. And then it was a murder-suicide. Like, these things are happening, and nobody wants to talk about it. Not to say anybody controlling would commit murder, but more often than not, we're seeing deaths from domestic violence and gang violence and things of that nature. So moving on to the top causes. On top of just wanting to kill Black women, the top three are gun violence, stabbings, and strangulations. And we saw an uptick in gun violence in 2020 due to, I want to say it was due to everybody being at home, not being able to get out, but we saw a lot of it. And a lot of it was based in domestic violence and gang violence. So it was an uptick in strangers just shooting and just killing Black women that happened to be there. But most of the cases that we get are some kind of domestic violence with gun violence, murder, suicide, or just, I'm just killing. I'm just going to kill because I want to. And the problem is that even though these things are happening, Black women are still being told you need to choose better. You need to stop having basic energy. You need to level up if you want to be loved. Stop just leaving anybody with your children. Acting like
Aurora, you muted yourself.
I think my phone, can you guys hear me now? I think
Yeah.
my earphone died.
Okay.
So the problem is that we're acting like fathers and cousins and uncles aren't doing the damage, but they are. So if I can't leave my child with their father, I mean, who can I leave my child with? And we're not placing the problem on the community terrorists who are terrorizing our communities. We're blaming the victims. Now, we see this all the time with how society treats women and rape culture. It's always on us to be on the lookout, to dress a certain way, to behave a certain way, to not get raped. And still, we do all these things and we're still raped. So Black women on top of that have to still deal with the violence and the brutality in our own communities. So let me keep going up. I want to show you guys, this is really important to me because this happened last summer in a week's time frame. 5 Black girls ages 7 months to 16 were killed during this week. Little Black girls gone, just gone. They don't exist anymore. But I wanted you to see who they were because they mattered. They mattered. They had families, and a lot of these were gunshots. I think most of these were one. The 7-month-old was child abuse, but the rest of them were gunshots, just being killed by gun violence for no other reason. And we're not seeing this in any other community but the Black community. And when we talk about it, people want to get upset. People don't want us to say anything about it, but we have got to call it out. We don't have a choice. Now, this is definitely not to say that white supremacy and white resiliency and other means aren't harming Black women, because it is. More Black, just like we talked about earlier, more Black women are killed due to medical racism weekly than Black men are killed by police in a year. Black women are more likely to die during and after childbirth, regardless of class, income, and economic standing. Serena Williams had to advocate for herself. Beyonce had to advocate for themselves, and they have money. I mean, and Serena is married to a white man, so she had a lot more privilege than just a single mother trying to have her baby. Typically, Black women are 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related issues and complications than white women. And in Chicago, there are areas where Black women are 6 times more likely to die from complications with pregnancy, even after the baby is born. There's data that I got from the FDA that out of 24 drugs that were approved from 2015, fewer than 5% of the participants were Black for cancer vaccines, but Black women are disproportionately impacted by cancer. So they're not even bringing us in to see how our bodies react to these drugs. Over 80% of Black women are the primary breadwinners in our households, yet we remain the group that's not married. We don't receive promotions or support at our jobs, and we're working jobs in servitude that aren't giving us any room to grow. And even when we have senior level experiences and degrees, we're being looked over for white people that aren't even trying to be promoted. Black women are mostly at risk for premature death, even when they live in wealthier, predominantly white areas because of particle pollution. And researchers were even surprised and literally said it's literally because of racism. And Black women have some of the highest rates of homelessness with their children. So racism and white supremacy is a problem, but that does not mean we need to ignore what's happening within the community. And if we care about the Black community, we have to care specifically about Black women, because there are things that we're facing that no other demographic is facing at these levels. I'm just going to keep going through the pictures. And again, trigger warning, these are real people that have been murdered from 2019 all the way to 2021. Babies, children, mothers, grandmothers, just gone. These people are gone, and we're not talking about it. We're not figuring out solutions to protect Black women and girls in the community. Now, this is a recent one. February 2nd, a uncle came in, killed his brother and all the children. All these children gone in the blink of an eye over something that didn't even make any sense. And even when we are marching and fighting for Black men, we are still being killed. As you may know who this is, but this is Sadie Roberts Joseph. She's an activist in Baton Rouge, and she also was the founder of the African American Museum there. She was murdered and thrown into the trunk of her car by a Black man. Then you have Toyin Salou, who was an activist who was recently just out there fighting, marching for Black men, for police brutality. And she was kidnapped, raped, and tortured for 3 to 5 days and then murdered by a Black man. And she's out there fighting so that they can live. But literally, the people you're fighting for are literally harming you. And this is happening every day to people that we know and don't know. These are the men that killed those women. And for what? These women chose better. These women were doing the work that we are doing right now, work that we are doing. This could be us. These women are us. These are our sisters, and they're gone. These are our babies, and they're gone. And nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to get serious about it. Black women cannot and should not expect their oppressors to protect them. And that includes Black men who are equally oppressing, killing, and harming us and our children. So what can we do to protect ourselves? Now, of course, there are many things that you can do. One of the things, and this is part also on the policy. I know the policy was specific to Illinois, but I created a document that was used by Harvard and other organizations, where you can go on to my website, theblackwell.com/Stop Killing Black Women Initiative, and you can download a template packet. And this packet gives you the ability to write down or to edit what is happening in your community and what you want your lawmakers and senators and governors and governments to know specifically what's happening in your community. What do Black women need in your community? You can download it, you can use it, and you can call, you can email, you can go up there, whatever you want to do, and have your notes. If you don't know what's happening specifically in your community, you got to go out and talk to Black women. You got to fellowship with Black women and ask Black women what is going on, so you guys can come together and learn how to protect ourselves, because no one is going to do it. It's either us or it's nobody, because we see it. No one is trying to protect us. The other things that I think is very important that I have done myself, and I tell all girls that I mentor and talk to all the time, if you live by yourself, or even if you don't, buy a portable lock for your door. You can get them on Amazon, a 2-pack for $12.99. Get a security system installed in your home, get a license to carry, and start shooting classes and learning how to use that gun, because sis, he knows how to use the gun and he will kill you. Purchase police grade gel pepper spray. I always say gel pepper spray because it literally is jelly and it smears. So even if they're wiping it off, they can't. Mine costs $50. You can go online, the police use it. Literally, if you don't feel comfortable with a gun, that's okay. Get that pepper spray, stop them right in its tracks. You can also purchase the police approved electric batons. My baton, the only part that doesn't light up is the part that I'm holding. So if they even come near you and they try to grab it on either side, it's going to electrocute them as long as you're pushing that button down. Document all abuses, even if you're sending pictures of yourself and everything they're saying to a cloud server, and tell at least one person, because if you need to defend yourself, you don't want to be like those ladies we see on Snapped or Investigation TV that didn't tell nobody, and people suspected, but no one knew. You want to have backup. So if you got to do what you got to do, you have your backup and you have what you need. Another point, getting that restraining order. So as soon as abuse starts, as soon as you feel some type of way, go get that restraining order. Please get that restraining order. It may be a piece of paper, but again, if you got to get down to business, you have already put that paper trail there so that you can go home at the end of the day, especially if you have babies. Do background checks and credit checks. Now, it doesn't always find anything. That's just you doing your due diligence to make sure that this person is at least okay. You know, like, yeah, they may have student loan debt, but do they have a criminal history? This is so important to know about this person's background, stuff that they can't just tell you, oh, it's no big deal. Well, why is it on your credit? Why is it there? Make sure that you vote in the interest of Black women. I'm not rooting for everybody Black, because not everybody Black roots for me. So if it doesn't benefit Black women, whatever, it is not my concern, because Black women, I'm a Black woman. So if it's not helping me, it's harming me. And that's how I move through life. Speak with families, family, friends, exes, jobs, get references about people that you meet, even if it's just a friendship. There's some that we've reported on, they weren't even in a romantic relationship, but it was a friend. It was a male friend that they happened to trust, and they were murdered. A Black woman was living with one of her friends, and he, of course, wanted to have more than a relationship with her. She told him that she wasn't interested and she was going to go ahead and move out because it was awkward. And I guess when she was moving out, he started attacking her, and she said, I guess she's out of anger. She said, I would never date you because you're fat. And he shot her. And her mom was literally in the car waiting for her to get her stuff out of the house. He shot her, and literally because she called him fat. So this was a friend, someone she wasn't interested in, a roommate. There was no romanticness involved, and she was still murdered. Most important thing as well, know your laws of your city regarding stand your ground, domestic violence, and if you can carry pepper spray, tasers, brass knuckles, things like that, because there's some laws that may prevent you from carrying certain stuff and you don't want to go to jail. And then also reach out to those local governments and demand that they make laws to protect Black women. Like, that's so important. And again, those templates, and then also the agenda from BWOP, their agenda as well, is super detailed. That's going to be so helpful for you. Even if you're not in Illinois, you can customize that to where you are at in whatever city or state. If you care about Black women and girls, you have to contact your local reps, and you have to be very specific in your terminology. Not talking about people of color, not talking about women of color, talking about Black women. We have to be very specific, because helping people of color doesn't necessarily help Black women. So it's important to be very specific on who you are talking about, why this is needed. And then the data, I have so much data on my website. There's data to back up everything you're saying. You can't believe in equality, want justice, and want healing for the Black community if you don't specifically fight for Black women and girls. Black women are being slaughtered, and you have the power, we have the power to ensure that it stops. And it's time to hold the Black community accountable for gaslighting Black women and girls this entire time. This is the only way forward. And I want to end with this. I was looking for people talking about what was happening, and there was this white woman that wrote an article that said, Black femicide is a quiet crisis. And the reason why she was able to use that as a quiet crisis, because it's not quiet, is because we have been conditioned to forget about ourselves and not talk about what's harming us. We have been conditioned to put everybody first, but we can't be quiet anymore, or we're going to continue to be slaughtered every single day. And I just want to thank you guys for having us. And I want to tell everyone here that you are valid, you are worthy, and I want you all to be successful and to live a full, thriving life. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Aurora. We are so appreciative of your work and that of Black femicide, and we just thank you all so much for presenting for us this evening. I'm going to hand it over now to Joy, who will introduce our next speaker.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Dr. Fegan is a Chief Medical Officer for the Cook County Health and Hospital System and John H. Stroger Jr. Hospital of Cook County. She's also a past president and board member of the Chicago-based Health and Medicine Policy Research Group. In 2016, Modern Healthcare named Dr. Fegan one of 10 minority executives to watch, noting her achievements in the medical profession and her single-payer activism. She is the 2017 recipient of the Paul Corneli Award from the Physicians Forum. Dr. Fegan is National Coordinator of Physicians for a National Health Program. In her current and past leadership roles in PNHP, she's appeared on national TV and radio programs on behalf of the organizations and has testified before congressional committees on a wide range of healthcare issues. She has lectured extensively to both medical and community audiences on healthcare reform in the US and Canada, and is co-author of the book, Universal Healthcare, What the United States Can Learn from the Canadian Experience, and contributor to 10 excellent reasons for national health care. And thank you so much, Dr. Fegan, for agreeing to speak with us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. And yes, I've spent probably the last more than 30 years advocating for universal health care, particularly single payer health care. But I want to talk tonight about why Black women should care about this issue. Why is this important to us? And, so we talk about people get confused because, and it's a deliberate thing, because oftentimes the opposition uses our language to confuse people about what they're talking about. So we're talking about an improved Medicare for all. So what if we all went to sleep tonight and tomorrow morning we woke up and we were all insured? We all had access to insurance, because in this country, health insurance means access. And if you don't have health insurance, you often do not have access to the care you need. Now, I don't think that that's the way it should be, but that's a reality of the country in which we live in. And so that means that that people, a lot of people are uninsured. In 2019, 38,000 people died just from not having insurance. If you qualify for, eliminate all other factors. And so one of the things I wanted to ask is how many people who are on the call tonight have health insurance provided by their employer? So the reason I ask this question is because since in the last 10 years, the deductible that people pay with their insurance has increased by 50%. And the cost of, increased by 150%, while the cost of the wages have increased by only 25%. So 150% increase in a deductible, a 50% increase in the premiums that you pay, the amount of money you pay for having insurance, and a 25% increase in our wages means that most people are paying more, spending more, a greater portion of their earnings for their health care, but they're not necessarily getting what they need. The number of people who are uninsured in this country has been increasing steadily over the last 20 years. So the reality is that Blacks in the United States die 4.5 years younger. And in Illinois, we die 5.3 years younger than whites. That's reality. So, this is a uniquely American problem. Why should we live in the richest country in the world, and yet being Black is a risk factor for dying younger? And if you look at the life expectancy of Black men compared to white men, Black men have twice as many deaths per 100,000. But if you look at the early death in 66 other countries, and I'm talking about other well-developed countries, the death rate for Black men and white men is almost the same. And so, we're 50% more likely to be uninsured than whites. And as a result of not having insurance, we're less likely to get the care we need when we need it. We're more likely to have adverse outcomes. We're more likely to present with more advanced disease and have the complications. And being the chief medical officer for the Cook County Health, we see this in the patients who come to see us. We see our patients tend to come in with preventable death, preventable problems. So the next question I want to ask is how many of you or a member of your household have been uninsured for more 30 days or more in the past year? Because this is a very common issue. So even though you may be insured for most of the time, you may have changed jobs, or you may separate from a spouse who you were on their insurance. And as a result of that, you lose your insurance. And when you have a loss of insurance, you have a loss of access to medical care, a loss of access to the medications that you need. So if you look at how the US ranks in health and mortality compared to other countries, look at Australia, look at Europe, look at Canada, look at Denmark, France, Italy, Japan, Norway, Portugal. We're the last in terms of how our healthcare, how we score with healthcare. What are we looking at? We're looking at maternal mortality. I'm going to come back to that. We're looking at infant mortality. We're looking at life expectancy. When we have an equal footing, Black people thrive. So, you know, Blacks survive longer than whites when we're on dialysis. Why? Because people on dialysis are insured. In the VA system, Blacks survive longer than whites because they have access to the same level of care as whites. So when we have equal opportunity, we do better. So this is why, you know, our issue in terms of, we talk about maternal mortality, you know, so I have been a physician. I have been a physician for more than 30 years. Sometimes I don't like to admit that. But when I came out of my training, the maternal mortality rates in the United States were 8 women for every 100,000 live births. That maternal mortality has gone up in the last 30 years, and it's gone up dramatically. So, you know, maternal mortality in Canada is 6.3 for every 100,000 live births. In the Latino community, maternal mortality is 11.5. Among whites, it's gone up to 12.7. Asians at 13.5. Native Americans, 29.7. You know where I'm going with this. Black women have a maternal mortality rate of 40.8 per 100,000 live births. Women who die in childbirth, the 63% of pregnancy-related deaths are preventable deaths. And insurance has a lot to do with it. It has everything to do with it. As the last speaker talked about us not being heard, Black women have problems, they have symptoms, and when they present to the healthcare system, their complaints are minimized or dismissed, and they die as a result of it. So if you have a medical condition, you know, medical condition that it places you at risk for shortening your life expectancy, we die earlier and we die more as a result of conditions that are preventable deaths, whether it's heart disease, you know, or kidney disease or stroke or cancer. 80%, 86% of the deaths are amenable to medical treatment and preventable causes. So whether or not we have access to insurance is definitely a Black issue. It's definitely a Black woman issue, and it's something that we need to fight. I'm happy that BWOP has as one of its policies to advocate for an improved Medicare for all. Why do I say improved Medicare for all? Because yes, we need everyone coverage. And I think that that's the simplest way to do it. But we need to understand that we cannot charge people for healthcare. You say, how can we afford health insurance and not charge people for it? Let me tell you that in the United States today, we spend more than any other country per person on healthcare. We're already spending enough on healthcare in this country. We're just allowing too many people who are not engaged in the delivery of healthcare to take profit from it. And as a result of it, not enough of us are covered. Not enough of us have access to the care that we need. So, you know, affordable access to healthcare is an important part of the American dream. It's an important part of how we can have better, high quality life. Compared to Americans, Canadians spend half as much on their healthcare, and yet fewer of them have unmet healthcare needs, and they live 3 years longer. And I don't want to hear about, well, we're not like Canada, we're more diverse. That is not true. The Canadian population is diverse. They have immigration and they have dealt with it, and they recognize the rights of people to have access to healthcare. Every other industrialized country has recognized the right to healthcare. Even South Africa, with the end of apartheid, has recognized the importance of providing access to healthcare. We spend almost $2,500 per person on health insurance administration. That is money that could be used to provide access to care for every man, woman, and child in this country. And yet we choose not to do that because there is too much money being made on healthcare. And it's being made, if you look at the downtown skyline of every major city in this country, look at what the big buildings are. The big buildings are the insurance buildings, that the big buildings are the company, you know, they make money by denying access to care. Because think about what health insurance is. You pay a premium so that the insurance company can tell you what you can and cannot have. They add no value to the product, and yet they are the screening, they are the funnel for access to the care that you need. And they are often there in the way. So we have Physicians for a National Health Program, and I'll direct you to our website, pnhp.org. We have filled with information, articles that are published about why this is our issue, about why we can afford to do it, but choose not to. Out of 253 economists, 20 out of 22 studies agree that the savings that we would get from a single payer national health care would more than cover everyone who lives within our boundaries. I'm not saying citizens, I'm saying everyone who lives in this country now could benefit from having access to health care. Millions of people die as a result of not having access to health care, and we continue to watch it happen on an annual basis. So what I'm talking about is like is single payer, is like Medicare, except it would provide all the care we need. We're talking about providing prescription drugs, eyeglasses, dentistry, hearing aids. We're talking about parity for mental health services. How many people have health insurance that does not include behavioral health benefits? Or if they do, they're very slim and they are not meeting the needs of the population. We have a stigma in this country about people who need mental health, and we don't pay for it. We label people and we deny them access to what they need. So I say that, you know, healthcare is a public good, just like the fire department is a public good. You don't have to pay the fire department to come and put out a fire in your house. And so we understand that no co-pays and no deductibles. Why? Not just because it costs too much to collect them, but the Rand Corporation did a study in the 70s where they did look at co-pays of as little as 50 cents or $1. If you don't make enough, that will deter people from necessary care just as often as unnecessary care. They repeated the study in the early 2000s, looking at co-payments for medications. And what they found was that patients did this terms of medications. The first thing they did was they stopped taking their arthritis medicine. The next thing they did was they spread out their medicines to every other day. They stopped taking their blood pressure medicine. The last thing they stopped was their diabetes medication. But time and time again, studies have shown that co-payments deter people from necessary care just as often as unnecessary care. Because without medical training, people are not aware of the dangerous choices what they make when they're trying to get by. And if people have to decide between buying a medication or paying a co-payment for a doctor's visit versus paying the rent or putting food on the table, they're going to do the most important thing in front of them at that moment, and that's putting food on the table or having a roof over their head. So I want people to understand what we're talking about is a very simple thing. Single payer medical care, which is universal health care, improved Medicare for all. And people say, well, that's too complicated. How can we remember it? It's everybody in and nobody out. It's just that simple. Everybody in and nobody out. Everyone should have, who does not deserve the right to the best care available? How can we say that we have the best health care in the United States, in the world, and we don't have it provide access, guaranteed access for every man, woman, and child living within our borders? We spend more money screening people out, decide who we will not take care of. If you walk into any emergency room in any city, any hospital in this country, the first thing you see is a registration desk where they're going to determine how is this visit going to be paid for. And just the act of asking someone if they have insurance is enough to deter them from getting the care they need. Still in this age, even after the Affordable Care Act, 60% of bankruptcies in the United States today are as a result of medical bill or medical debt. And the reality is the overwhelming majority of people who went bankrupt from a medical illness or medical debt had health insurance at the time of their inciting illness. And so what is the good of insurance if it does not even protect you from bankruptcy for medical bills. Yeah, I don't want to, go too long, but I want people to understand this is an important issue and there are options on the table and we have to advocate for it. It is our issue because Black women and girls are dying as a result of not having access to the care they need. Everyone should have access and should have a right to have someone who takes care of them, who meets their needs, who answers their questions, and who makes them feel better, who makes them feel more confident in how they are dealing with their bodies and how they are dealing with any medical condition they confront. And so this is an issue, obviously, I'm very passionate about. It's an issue I've been spent many years fighting for. And, my joy in life is to get to see patients. And the fact that I have risen to the top and am in charge of the county allows me to try to make a difference for every patient who walks through our doors. And we're challenged, but we take great pride in the fact that we take care of everyone, regardless of their ability to pay, because people need to have somewhere they can go and get the care they need and know that we are not going to stop you at the door because you don't have a dollar in your pocket. You need to be able to, just by birthright, have access to healthcare. So I want to thank you for giving me an opportunity, and that you should be able to personally choose the doctors and the hospitals that you feel are best for you. So we're advocating for a plan. We want to make sure that our members of Congress have to get in the same line we do to get the care that we get. And that when they are invested in that, they will make sure that our care is the best in the world, and it should be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fagan. We really appreciate your presentation. We're going to take another quick stretch break, and so I will have Rose introduce our second and final stretch break for the night. Go ahead, Rose. We can't hear you. I'm still not hearing you, Rose. I don't know what's going on. Okay, no worries, Rose. I'll go ahead and share our stretch break number 2. What is it? Prompt. And so please feel free, really take the time to stretch or get a drink of water or whatever it is you need. And also in the chat, what brings you joy about being a Black woman or girl? What brings you joy about being a Black woman or girl? I put a timer for 3 minutes, stretch, get a drink. You can respond to this question in the chat or raise your hand to unmute. What brings you joy about being a Black woman or girl? Tony, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, yep, we can hear you.
What brings me joy as being a Black woman is the fact that I can create another Black woman or another Black man, much like and equal to myself, if not, which I strive to, make them better than me, but definitely a reflection of, where I was raised and what, the traditions that I was brought up with. So being able to duplicate myself and make it better.
Thank you, Tony. We appreciate that. Thank you for these lovely responses in the chat. I'm going to read through a few of them. So, our beauty and the creativity of adorning our hair and melanin with fine fabrics and colors. our stick-to-itiveness. I don't have to spend all my time and money being a Black woman, having a strong Black mother, being the mother of a strong Black woman, knowing the strength of my ancestors who brought us this far, being able to tap into a collective, an unmatched collective strength. How we move from compliment to coaching in 2 minutes after meeting each other, that's love. If anyone else would like to unmute themselves to share out, please feel free to use the raise your hand function. We've got the creativity of Black woman. Okay, so my timer just went off. I'm going to move things right along. I will now go ahead and introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Carrie Stewart. Carrie Stewart is a full scope midwife practicing on the South Side of Chicago and has been providing care to predominantly Black and Brown patients for the past 2 years. She is the newly appointed Director of Midwifery Services at the University of Chicago Medical Center, and she is the Vice President of the American College of Nurse Midwifery Illinois Affiliate Board. Carrie Stewart is the founder of Melanated Midwives, a nonprofit organization that addresses Black maternal health disparities and maternal health deserts by providing family planning, prenatal, postpartum, and mental health education sessions in the community. Through the annual scholarship fund, Melanated Midwives provides $5,000 towards educational expenses to qualifying BIPOC student midwives and $500 towards certification exam fees to student midwives who were not awarded a scholarship. Carrie is truly committed to her calling to be a midwife, as well as helping students that desire to become midwives, as it continues to show in her advocacy and support of the community she serves daily. Please join me now in welcoming Dr. Carrie Stewart. So Dr. Stewart, you can take it away.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that introduction. I will let you know I'm not a doctor yet, but I'm working towards it, so I will take that. Let's speak it into existence. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being on this platform with some wonderful melanated individuals that are working hard on our behalf. I just wanted to speak today about some of the things that I'm advocating for in Illinois and specifically in Chicago, Black birthing bodies. And so it's very important because right now we are experiencing a lot of things on the South Side of Chicago specifically. And our voices need to be heard and we need to be supported in our endeavors. Specifically, I am the director of midwifery at the University of Chicago, newly appointed. And so I'm excited about that position and the things that entails and allows me to do with the patients that come to seek out midwifery care on the South Side of Chicago. But I'd be remiss to not mention that we are in the middle of a maternal desert on the South Side of Chicago. And specifically what that means is there is a lack of birthing options for our patients in the community. When COVID-19 hit about a year ago, we were already experiencing the closing of several labor and delivery units. And then COVID hit and some of the labor and delivery units in hospitals were closed to treat COVID patients. One of them has reopened, the other has not. And so right now on the South Side of Chicago, we have 3 hospitals that are offering options for our patients. We also do not have the option of having a birth center. And so myself and another midwife are advocating and trying to work on some legislative to get that changed. Because with anything in Chicago, it's a lot of red tape and a lot of things to do. And so we are in the midst of making that happen so that we can have more options on the South Side of Chicago. Of course, not everyone can have a birth center birth, a home birth. And so, you know, we are at the University of Chicago, the only diverse midwifery practice on the South Side of Chicago that is offering those services. And so what, you know, I want us to know what midwives are. We are nurse practitioners. If you are starting off as a nurse and you take that route, you're a nurse practitioner. Start off as a registered nurse and then you become a nurse practitioner. If you take the route of certified professional midwife, you go that route. But you know, those individuals are not licensed right now, certified or able to be certified in Illinois, and so they're working on that. But we need more melanated midwives for our patients. And so with Black midwives only making up 6% of the midwives in the United States, that's unacceptable, considering that midwives see predominantly melanated patients. We need more representation. And so just in my experience in going to school, I noticed that there was not enough of individuals that look like me. And so that is the reason behind my creation of Melanated Midwives, to diversify the midwifery profession, which originally started with Black midwives. And if you truly know the history, we started it all. And so to prevent us from carrying on what we were taught is just unacceptable. And so this was my contribution to bring that back to light. And so right now I am providing scholarships to student midwives to help them financially get through school, pass their exams, so they can get into the workforce and provide care for our birthing communities. And so I want to make sure that we have all the opportunities to do so. We are the ones that are going to help ourselves. And so this was what I wanted to bring to the community to do. In addition to that, I have been working on some endeavors in the community and education, and COVID has allowed us to do a lot of things online, educate our patients about pregnancy and advocacy for themselves and insurance, and you know, just making sure that they're aware of the services that are offered and how to advocate for themselves, reproductive care and birth. And so as Dr. Fegan told us about the numbers, they're staggering. It's unacceptable. And we should not be experiencing these deaths during, after, before pregnancy. It's unacceptable. And so we have lots of work to do, but that we all have a role that we can play in this in this community. And so I just want to make sure we all understand that we need to come together and advocate for more options, more providers, better insurance. Again, insurance means access. And so when we have better access, we do better. And it's so true. And so the more we do to make sure we have the same options as white folks do on the North Side and other places, we will have those options as well. And we will definitely do better. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Carrie. We really appreciate your participation. And I'm now going to hand it over to Lynette to introduce our final panelist. We are winding down to the end. We're running a few minutes behind, but we're just about at the end here. All right, Lynette.
Hi, thank you. I'm honored to introduce our next speaker. I have the privilege of introducing Chicago Birthworks Collective. Chicago Birthworks Collective is a Black-owned birth and postpartum doula company. The collective was founded by a mother and daughter duo, Tony and Teo, and consists of more than 12 Black doulas. The collective's mission is centered around providing comprehensive and culturally grounded education and support that leads to the empowerment and enjoyable reproductive experiences.
Hello? Okay, sorry. I didn't know if you were still talking. Can everybody see me?
Yep, we can see you.
Okay. So, me and my daughter started Chicago Birth Works almost 4 years ago, and it has been really a blessing to be, at the to start it in a place that I love, the city of Chicago, with so many moms who are in need of so much support and just a showering of love. So I can give a little bit of background. Me and my daughter both trained with Shafia Monroe, birth and postpartum full spectrum doulas. And we started with just me and her, and then very shortly thereafter we ended up having a lot more doulas join our collective, and then we started the community doula program, where we have doulas that are still needing more experience and more exposure, and families that can't afford the services for traditional doula services, they can take part in our services through our community doula program, which provides education for the moms and as well as the doulas, so everyone's like learning together. We offer breastfeeding support, placenta encapsulation, birth photography, mother blessing, spa services. I think I might be forgetting some things, but I think that's it. Oh, we offer food too, so we'll help like get you like a meal plan and like prep your food and different things like that. Most recently in this past June, we started, when all the riots and everything happened, we started a love package initiative. And there was like so many moms and families that just were without the necessities that they needed to care for their family. And my daughter came up with the idea, because she has small children, like, how can we show up for them? How can we shower them with love? How can we show them that, they are loved, they are cared about, they're not forgotten? And we started our love package initiative. So every month we open the list up, and moms are families are able to sign up for love packages. In the love packages, you'll receive diapers, wipes, formula, baby items, and we have a lot of support through a lot of different sponsors. Nano Baby. There's so many. I couldn't name them all. I would botch it, but we have a lot of support from different brands that are partnering with us to show their support for Black women and the maternal, it's really sad, just everything that's going on with us and our babies. And, if we don't stand up for ourselves and try to change our own outcomes and take control of our own narratives. And you guys all mentioned a lot of stuff that's, already going on with in Chicago and with Black birthing people. But the needs of Black birthing people in Illinois, we definitely need more access to care, more access to care that's not always provided inside of a hospital. Something that's great just for, what we might want, if we want to deliver at home, if we want to deliver at a birth center, and we shouldn't be mistreated, that goes without saying. But there are a lot, just like Carrie said, there are not a lot of home birth providers or access to hospitals inside our neighborhoods, or, alternative birthing options for, Black women and women of color birthing. Some of the experiences that Black women have been experiencing in Illinois, it's really heartbreaking, and I do my best as a doula to kind of be the in-between person, so that the mom is not receiving any undue trauma. and that it more so absorbs into me and not the mom, and she can have a separate experience from it and being like the buffer. And there's a lot of, uncertainty with COVID restrictions, and it's causing a lot of trauma with a lot of our birthing moms, Black birthing moms, separating them from their loved ones, separating them from their partners. And it's really disarming, and it's almost like another form of assault, because with all the COVID restrictions, you kind of have no one to police you. You can kind of do what you want, and when a mother is in labor, she's at her most vulnerable and her most strongest, where your strength and your vulnerability meet. A lot of our moms have been, well, not a lot, but enough of our moms have been declined. Their doulas have been declined access at the, to come into their births, even after they said that they would let them in, or they deny birth. I mean, they deny us access for like a certain amount of time. You can't come in until the mom is 6 centimeters. And like, how are you providing support if you can't be there to support the mom, before when she's in labor? Attending the prenatal visits alone, and increased risk of restrictions and the interventions, all of that stuff leads to more stress in the body when you're pregnant, and it makes the pregnancy a lot harder to just maintain as a Black woman with all of our other contributing stress factors that we have going on. So at Chicago Birth Works Collective, we are really working really hard to empower women to choose themselves and their families first, and really think about what does that mean to you, and how does that, how do you want that to show up for you? And just coming up with a plan that addresses your specific needs in terms of your goals for your family and for yourself. And teaching you, the foundational pieces needed to advocate for yourself first and then for your child in this medical world with, all these different things with vaccinations and COVID restrictions and just the regular medical world, and a lot of times the moms are not really going to the doctor for many other reasons until they're pregnant, and then getting that connection, creating that connection with your doctor while you're pregnant, where you feel comfortable to say the things that you need and actually feel like they're going to be heard, and they're going to be addressed in the right way. It's hard. It's really hard. So that's where we come in empowering you that you can have all those things. You can have access to these things, ask about this and how to do it, not just telling you, but explaining to you and giving you the tools to do it for yourself, and support you while you're doing it. So I don't know. Does anybody have any questions? That's pretty much all we do over here at Chicago Birthworks Collective.
How can we support the Love Package project? I dropped the link to the website in the chat, but is there any other way we could support?
So you can support the Love Package donation by donating to just donating to it. And you can donate your time, you can donate your money, you can donate items, and all of the moms that I've helped as my clients, I love them, don't get me wrong, but the actual joy of the ladies and the families that we've helped during the Love Packages, it's really something, you guys. I don't really know like how to say it. And when everything was going on with the racial stuff and like that, and just moms not having access to milk for their kids, and when all of the stores were looted, and a lot of these babies were on special milk, they robbed WIC stores, they robbed everything. They didn't have diapers, they didn't have so many things that are just like basic necessity. It's just downright hurtful. So even in addition to all the stuff that we have to deal with as Black women birthing, you know, and then to be in a situation where I drove 20 minutes this way, 20 minutes in that direction, 20 minutes in this direction, and there was nothing, you know. It's just, that's just really sad, you know, whether you have the money to get the stuff or not. And even if you do make it down there to the store, it was so bad for so long, there was nothing to get, you know. And we had a lot of support for and we still do. We have a lot of support, and we have a big turnout for those women and those families and those babies, you know, because if we don't take care of ourselves, like us taking care of us, nobody's going to take care of us like we're going to take care of ourselves, you know. And I appreciate all of you guys for everything that you're doing. And at Chicago Birthworks Collective, we are doing our part. And together, you know, we're gonna definitely see a change. There's no way about it that, you know, things are not gonna change. And even if things don't change, we are changing, you know, and we are going to, you know, find better ways and better means to, you know, have more say so in our births and, you know, what we want for our children.
We want to thank you so much again, Tony, for coming and presenting this evening. And let's make sure to give a virtual round of applause to Tony and the Chicago Birthworks Collective. We're so honored to have you. We are winding down now to the end. We are going to beg for forgiveness for going a little bit over. We are going to go about 10 minutes over our allotted time of 8 o'clock. So I apologize in advance for anyone who has that hard and fast deadline at 8 o'clock. This is being recorded, so even if you have to step away, this recording will be shared. We are now going to transition into a really important part of the evening, and it is a part that I have been waffling over right now, like, oh, should I cut this part because we're running out of time? And I've decided we absolutely really cannot, because that is the Black Woman and Girls Roundtable. So this is the opportunity for you to speak to one another about your lived experiences, and we would be remiss if we didn't have this. So our community roundtable, some of our norms, you are going to have, instead of 20 minutes, you will have 10 minutes to go through 5 questions. So it is going to have to be quick. Some norms, you will be in 3 large breakout rooms. I invite you to speak your truth and share the space. Be respectful. Our 3 moderators will be myself, my co-chair Lynette Sims, and Jasmine Guy from our co-sponsor, the Women's Board of the Chicago Urban League. I am going to share this PowerPoint, the link to this PowerPoint, I'll share it in the chat again, but we will have a 10-minute roundtable session, after which we will be treated to a final performance from Iman Loren, who is the first Chicago Youth Poet Laureate. And thank you all so much for coming, even if you have to leave. But for those of you who are going to stick around, we are going to go ahead and head into our breakout rooms at this time. So without further ado, we're going to go into our breakout rooms. Thank you all so much for coming. And again, I completely understand if you are not able to stay with us. So let's get our 3 breakout rooms here and make sure that we're all able to unmute yourselves. And there we go. All right, so at this time, please hit join into one of your breakout rooms. Room 3, our moderator is Jasmine. Room 1, our moderator is Lynette. Hi, everybody, welcome. So let me go ahead and change this to gallery view because this is more of a conversation. This is not a presentation anymore. We don't have too much time in here, but we do want to get a conversation started. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. Our first question, concerns and celebrations. Share one current concern that you have for yourself as a Black woman or girl, and then follow it up with a celebration, something that you celebrate about being a Black woman or girl. So concerns and celebrations. Anyone can go. Everyone has the ability to unmute themselves now. So feel free, just chime in.
Well, I'm going to go first. One of the biggest concern for me as a Black woman, and actually it's even been since I've been a Black girl, is the fact that I don't feel like anybody listens. Nobody listens to my concerns for myself. You know, when I was younger, it was my concern for the future. And now as an adult, it's still about what's going to become of me as a Black woman. What kind of future do I have to look forward to when I'm being overlooked in every aspect, be it, you know, medical, politically, in the community. And one of the good things about being a Black woman is the fact that we never bow down. Most of us don't bow down, and we always press forward, and we try to find a solution to help those that are coming behind us so that they can do better. I'm a mom of 4 daughters, and you know, I feel that I've had a pretty good life, especially as a professional, but I feel that my daughters are doing better than me. And I feel that each generation should do better than the last. And that's just something as a Black woman that I hope that's my legacy to leave to my daughters, is to make sure that the next generation of Black girls are going to be better than the last.
Thank you so much, Rosa. Would anyone else like to chime in? Oh, okay. So let's go Toya, then Carlotta, I'm sorry, then Tony. I'll drop that in the chat. Go ahead, Toya.
Okay. Hi, my name is Toya. And actually, Rosalind, she kind of like really nailed it on the head, people not listening. I'm close with my brother, and of course he's a male in my life. My husband passed away years ago, but I do really see the continuation of not listening. This is just my brother. You know, I could tell him something that's important to me, bring it up later, and it's as if I'm telling someone brand new every time. And I remember that experience with my husband. And it gets kind of old and tiresome where you, at some point, you stop sharing information. You just assume they're not gonna listen. And I don't get it much from women, but men, they're very dismissive of women's opinions, and in different settings. It doesn't have to be any particular setting, but I find that to be the case. And Rosalind, you nailed it.
Thank you, Toya. Carletta, you can go ahead and chime in.
Thank you. So for me, it's a bit of what Rosalind said, but also the erasure of, I don't know if I'm saying that right, I'm having a moment, it's Monday, of Black women and girls in every situation. We are erased in the conversation of police brutality. We are erased in the conversation of daily racism and the gun violence, in everything. It's almost, it's almost like people believe, even through history, Black women didn't face the same things as Black males, even though we face that and more, because we're dealing with misogyny and sexism, and also the racism. We're dealing with more, and people, they erased us out of the civil rights movement. It was about Black men. When you think about Elaine Brown, how she spoke about the Black Panther Party, how the concern was Black men, it wasn't even Black women. It was so that's my concern. But what I do celebrate is looking at history, because I'm the one that loves history. The Ida B. Wells, the Sojourner Truths, the Angela Davis. We're gonna keep yelling about it. We're gonna keep yelling. We're gonna keep saying this is our truth. This is what's happening. And we're gonna keep talking about it, as we do at Black Femicide. And we get a lot of pushback. We get a lot of pushback, but what about the Black men? Or we get, well, what about white women, Asian women, or, so, I love that Black women will continue to use their voices and speak for themselves, and more are waking up that we need to advocate for us, and we need to be loud. And if we're gonna mule, we need to mule for ourselves, because nobody else is standing up with us. We shouldn't have to beg for anyone to stand for us. So that's it.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Was it me? I'm sorry. Is it not me?
Yeah, it's you. It's you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say that you said the first question was what is the dilemma, the problem, and then what is the thing that has like answered it, right?
Yeah, so concerns and celebrations of Black womanhood. Yeah.
So my concern was that Black women were putting themselves last and putting their children and their partners and their family and their job before themselves, so much that we were causing ourselves undue trauma, stress, all kinds of things, and feeding into the way society treats us. The celebration that I have noticed, and the pickup, the change or the turn has been a lot in this COVID, and just women reaching out for services, for doula services, and, saying, hey, I think I need help. And we have had a huge influx of moms reaching out in their first trimester. Previously, before COVID, they were, it would be like just in the latter part of their second trimester to their third trimester, and not really the understanding of why you need a doula and what we do and different things like that. And I'm just really warmed with the fact that moms are actually thinking about themselves, because to look out to request a doula and search and check it out and pay for services, you're actually choosing yourself and you're advocating for yourself. And I think that turn helps to show other people, because I definitely teach with my clients, I definitely teach their partners and their family members, what it really means to bring a child into this world, and the type of support, and how, we should be regarded, and how it should continue even after delivery, and just the reverence of our bodies, that we can make babies.
I really appreciate the word that you used there, the reverence. And I have to say, this whole conversation has been incredibly heartening to me as a woman of childbearing age. I sometimes have moments of like panic almost associated with the thought of childbirth, but being in spaces like this, it really, it calms my fears, and it just reminds me, okay, you're prepared and you're ready to advocate for yourself and your future children. So you're gonna be okay.
That's a real thing that you're feeling, and what you're saying is definitely, and we help you unpack all of that, because those are real fears, because a lot of times you don't really think about that until you get to that place of like, okay, I think I'm ready to reproduce. Oh my gosh. Whoa, wait, this is my statistics. You're like, wait a second, I should put this off a little bit. Well, let me get this, and it's not really that, but we give you the tools and we help you unpack what is going on for you and what you want.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. I want to thank you all for participating. I know for a fact that that was not enough time, but hopefully you were able to start some conversations that we can continue at a later date in another space. I'm now going to hand it over in our final moments here to Iman Lauren to give us our spoken word performance, and I'm going to briefly introduce her to you. Iman Lauren is a Black queer Scorpio from the west and south side of Chicago, whose work unpacks her coined philosophy of hood womanism. She was named Chicago's first youth poet laureate. She has been featured in Vogue magazine, Chicago magazine, and the Chicago Tribune. Her work has appeared in the Breakbeat Poets, New American Poetry in the Age of Hip Hop, the Breakbeat Poets Volume 2, Black Girl Magic, and elsewhere. She is host of her hit podcast, The Real Hoodwives of Chicago. Her first chapbook of poems, Commando, was published by Haymarket Books in the fall of 2017. Please give a warm virtual snap to Iman Lauren.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This has been so amazing and beautiful and so vital and educational for me. I really just appreciate listening to y'all. So I'll be quick because I know we're on time. But like I said, my work unpacks the idea of hood womanism, or I believe that like the Black woman is the most natural finesse. And finessing is really just the science of social engineering, and rob these niggas, finesse these niggas, they deserve it. And the name of this poem is called A Bird in a Hand. A bird in the hand is better than 2 overdraft fees. Every nigga starts off as an African proverb. He makes a phoenix of his grandmother every time he enters a new DM. Somewhere is a Black girl planning her finesse like a prayer. Her mother is sitting in the back pew of her fingernails and alarm clock. She thinks what color the sky will be when they answer the phone. A woman from West Virginia is saying that she understands. She croons her pat on the back of a draw and says that we are sitting on the same branch. This woman is holding my entire nest in her hands. I open my chat beak to ease her potential fear. Either way, I'm leaving this conversation as something Black and ugly. I pick from my stones of DMs. I sit in the bush and see who can I hit. Whose mocking do I kill? I've got a flock in my Facebook app and some migrating from my Instagram. My ducklings can switch a digit for me. I call my canaries through Cash App, get funds from my falcons. My hands full of breadcrumbs and chips. No one can deny a meal that comes cupped and warmed. All they can do is stay perched and thirsty, waiting for me to bathe them. A bird in the hand is better than 2 burning bushes, one given to my landlord and the other to the block lumberjack. I hear my pockets chirp every time I spend my earning. I'll throw them a thirst trap and open their cage in mid-song. Here they go, spreading their wings and making themselves a double tap. I give back their whole and deem me captain of their timeline, helping them back home. For every nigga needs an investment plan or an archive of some sort, a place where he is a little less pet and reminded of his fly. Thank you.
All right, we want to thank you so much, Iman. We want to give a special warm shout out to all of our participants this evening. I want to run through quickly. So we want to be sure to thank the Women's Board of the Chicago Urban League and Jasmine Guy, who moderated one of our breakout rooms. We want to thank Octavia Icard, Carrie Stewart from Melanated Midwives, Keena Collins, Aurora Monroe from Black Femicide, Dr. Claudia Fagan, Jackie Grimshaw, Tony Taylor from Chicago Birthworks Collective, Iman Lauren, and of course, you. Thank you so much for participating. We will be sharing the recording of this presentation. I've actually already received some emails from folks who were unable to make it. So we will be sharing this through our social media accounts. We will also be following up with all of our participants. We have your email now. We're not going to spam you, but we are going to get in touch. Probably just create one neat sort of document of links, as there was a lot shared in the chat this evening. So we want you to be able to go back to give to the Melanated Midwives Scholarship. We want you to be able to go back to the Black Femicide resource page for advocating on behalf of Black women and girls. Once you go back to the Chicago Birthworks Collective page so that you can contribute to the Love Package Project. All right, and with that being said, thank you and have a fantastic evening. I will play a song as we file on out. I'm going to end the recording here. If anyone wants to stick around and I guess socialize.